Good. Right. YouTube is always there. Where's it gone? How many windows? There we go. Okay.
All right, time to start.
You make it on.
I wanted on record that I was roped into this. I had no clue that there was this Q&A with both the rabbi and myself until very recently, and then I wasn't given a get out clause. But I'm actually really excited.
I think you'll find it was your idea.
I battered the idea about a few weeks ago, and you went and stuck it in the diary.
There you go.
But it's okay. It's quite exciting, isn't it? I think.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A. It's lovely to have you here tonight on Zoom with us. So this is really a free-flowing evening. It is a chance for us all to have a conversation. It's been a while since we've, I suppose, sat down together for obvious reasons, and we want to do this more often. So let's, I think, just sort of say standard sort of rules, that this is a open forum, no question should be off the cards. If we don't feel comfortable answering it, we'll let you know, but you should feel comfortable asking it. And let's begin. If you want to send questions anonymously or privately in the chat so that it's not by a name, that's fine. Otherwise, you're welcome to just unmute yourselves and we'll begin. And you can direct questions to one or both of us, or maybe even to Yiska, who's quietly lurking in the background. It's entirely up to you.
In our foreground and your background.
Yeah. Who would like
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What happens in the shul with the duchenim? They're not supposed to be together. So when they're doing for the priests and that, what do they do?
Do you mean we're supposed to be together and now we're not in shul at the moment?
No, when it is, whenever the duchenim is next.
Yeah.
It means with the priests and everything at Yom Tov.
When they're all together, you all stand together in the ark. How can they do that? They've got to have space.
Yeah. So that's a great question, and it really opens up, I imagine, a number of questions about how we're going to manage opening the shul under the coronavirus conditions and the different restrictions that we have in place in order to ensure that we're as safe as possible. So we will be releasing detailed guidance tonight or tomorrow regarding what opening the shul will look like in the next few weeks until the High Holy Days. And so we can, some of that we can talk about tonight, and some of that will be in any case published in print tonight or tomorrow. But in terms of duchening, so we have to do what we can do. So if we have to be at a 2 meter distance, then the priests will be arranged at the front of the shul, all at a distance, and they can also be staggered. So it doesn't have to be all one line. They can be some in front and some behind. It makes me think a little bit about the very beautiful duchening that happens on Chol HaMoed at the Kotel in Jerusalem. That every Chol HaMoed Sukkot and Chol HaMoed Pesach, there is what they call Birkat Kohanim, the blessing of the priests, whereby they gather thousands and thousands of people in the Kotel Plaza. By the way, can you hear us at the moment? Just wave if you can hear. Yeah. Okay, good, thank you. So they gather thousands of priests in the Kotel Plaza, and tens of thousands of other people come, and there is a blessing en masse by thousands of priests to tens of thousands of Jews and others, and the priests are, maybe 10 thick and 100 wide or 200 wide, and you just look. We have to fit it in as we can. So it's the same principle when it comes to the shul, is that we'll be initially using a 2 meter social distance, because even though currently government guidelines do offer the opportunity for a reduced distance if necessary, there is an acknowledgement that it's less safe. So we're beginning with a 2 meter social distance when we open up the shul, and then that will be reviewed in August once everyone's been able to understand, including the United Synagogue, has been able to understand what the effect of opening the shuls has been and whether it is safe to go from a 2 meter to a 1 meter social distance. Yeah, thanks for opening that up, Suzanne and Sheila. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think Sheila's question is even a deeper, or there's an overarching principle, which is at what distance can people be together and still be considered a group for a minyan or for purposes of davening? And that is, I believe, the principle is within earshot and eyesight. Is that right?
Or within that's a good question. There's been all sorts of different ways that Jews have tried to get together to pray over the past few months. Some of those have gotten bad press in the media, others have got some positive press. Things like people standing on balconies and being able to see each other, but actually being in different rooms, so to speak. But just being able, but those rooms are open to each other, others garden minyanim and what have you. So there is a halakhic debate about whether if you're in a different room but you can see each other, whether it works to make a minyan. So it's a good question, Shoshana. Certainly if you're in the same room, and certainly if you're aware of the fact that other people are with you and pacing themselves alongside with you, that should be all right. Okay. Someone sent in a question in the chat related to this, just to continuing this comment. They ask,
we're not meant to talk to each other in or after shul. This is COVID wise, but we're not meant to talk to each other in or after shul, but a lot of people haven't seen each other for many months, and we're Jews. Is that realistic? Realistic? Yes, I think it has to be. Whether that would have been realistic a while ago without all of the heaviness of COVID, perhaps not. But yes, it's not so much about realism as it's what it needs to be. So we're hoping that everyone will be able to respect that, so that we don't get any bad press. Because if there are people congregating outside the shul and neighbors or anyone else sees it, it's not going to be, it won't be good rep for us at all. So it's what's going to have to be, and if that means that there's going to be shushes, unfortunately, in a shul that doesn't like the idea of shushes.
Barnet doesn't do shushing.
Barnet does it outside the front. If people are congregating outside the front,
I think maybe a different way to think about it is I'm a Star Trek fan, or I used to be a Star Trek fan.
Is that the Duchening one?
No, that's not the Duchening. Oh yeah, that is the Duchening. That's right. Live long and prosper is also Yivarecha. But but I think Leonard Nimoy was a Cohen, wasn't he? In any case,
yes, he was.
He was, right? So where do you think that came from? That wasn't anyway. So we put out our video about opening up the shul. That's right. Thank you, Silvermans, for demonstrating your Kahanic prowess. So we put out a video for the shul, and slightly tongue in cheek said it's shul gym, but not how we know it. It's shul gym, but not how we know it. And I think something we have to appreciate is that even though Eversley Road is being opened up on Sunday for Minyanim, and not this Shabbat, but on the 11th of July will be the first Shabbat that we will be returning to Eversley Road in some capacity. It's really not going to be what we have all what we all love and enjoy about shul. It is going to be simply people coming together. 1 second, sorry. Darling, we said we have to be quiet if you're going to be down here, otherwise you have to go upstairs. Okay, fine. So it's really not going to be, what can you do? That's why we don't, okay. It's really not going to be what we all love about shul, which is not just, I mean, we all love to pray, I'm sure, and we all love to pray with a minyan, I'm sure. But we also love coming together as a community, seeing our friends, enjoying each other's company, having a natter over the Kiddush, catching up, all those things. And yes, we also like to talk through shul and kind of kick each other during laning and all the other things that happen when the big family called community come together. But we're not going to have that. It really is just going to be a place of prayer, not sitting near to each other. And I suppose my recommendation is if that's going to be too tricky, and for many that might be, this might not be the right juncture to come back to shul for some people. It might be actually uncomfortable to have shul in such a limited form, and though that sounds quite sad and depressing, It's just trying to manage expectations around what we can and can't do at the moment. And so if you want to come and daven, then the shul is open. If you want to engage in amazing programming, educational materials, social action, social activities, so then look out for everything we're doing outside of the shul. Look out for everything we're doing on Zoom. Look out for the upcoming first ever, I think, Barnet Bike Ride, as we produce our schedule of events for July, which will be coming up later this week. Look out for our walking treasure hunt around Barnet. Look out for all the things that we're going to be doing and continue to do. Come log into Chasing Lullabies, engage with Torah texts in a different way. Come to Wellbeing Wednesdays and learn a little bit about looking after yourself. And this month we have a dietitian coming to talk about nutrition during lockdown. So there's lots of things that we can offer, but just not in the building. And one of the things that I've been writing to the shul, and that'll be published tonight or tomorrow, is that our community is much more than bricks and mortar. You know, our community transcends Eversley Road. Eversley Road is a container for the community, but it's not the only place that community exists. It exists in the relationships that have spanned decades, maybe more, in the members of our shul. Our community exists in the love and care that people hold for each other, and that doesn't have to be only within the context of Eversley Road. That can be anywhere we are. If we find ourselves on Zoom, that's where it is. If we find ourselves in the park, that's where it is. Okay. Next question.
How can you manage with not being able to sing in a service? I mean, because it's an integral part of the responses and everything else that goes on.
It's a good question. Shoshana, do you want to?
I don't know so much as singing. I think you're right. It's an integral part, or it's. I don't know. Speak louder. He wants me to scream. He wants me to sing it. The singing has become an integral part of shul services, because that's the way we've kind of evolved our services to include song, because that speaks to us as people. But the necessities of the service, the blessings, the words that can simply be said, and the response of Amen is the backbone of the service itself. And the halachic component is restricted, I suppose, to just those hearing a blessing and responding Amen. Everything else is bells and whistles, beautiful bells and whistles, but sort of extra add-ons. If, again, I'm going to echo the rabbi here, if it's going to be a depressing service for someone, a depressing Kabbalat Shabbat, without being able to sing the words of Kabbalat Shabbat, without being able to feel that atmosphere, then it may be for some people that it's the wrong time to return to shul. For myself, I know that I would not enjoy a Kabbalat Shabbat if people weren't singing the rousing tunes that I love. If it's simply people standing there and murmuring to themselves, I'd rather be at home. So it's at risk of simply echoing your earlier sentiments. That's what I would say.
I would just maybe add a little bit more to that as well, which is that Rena, you're right. You know, Rena, song is everything.
With a name like Rena.
Rena's a song. So we've been singing as Jews across the millennia. Shoshana's right that there's no halachic imperative to sing, meaning you would discharge your obligation, so to speak, of prayer even without song. But in terms of the actual experience of connecting to God and enjoying worship, so from our earliest times, Jews have celebrated their relationship with God and with each other in song. So I mean, you know,
well, throughout Tehillim, we speak about the songs of the Levites on the steps in the courtyards.
Yeah, and even before Tehillim, we've got the song of the splitting of the sea.
Yeah.
We've got song as they're going through the process of becoming Am Yisrael, becoming the people of Israel. They're singing Az Yashir Moshe. At that time, Moses sang. So singing is so essential to how we practice. And actually, song is music. Jewish music has such an interesting history, because there's Sephardi music, there's Ashkenazi music. So there's Ashkenazi music, which is essentially very much influenced by the church. There's Sephardi music, very much influenced by the mosques. There's like all different sort of cultural influences that have penetrated into the way we are. And so singing is a really important way of expressing ourselves in prayer, expressing ourselves to God. And that is a loss. The prayer, the chazan will be able to sing, and everyone else will be able to sing, but the language that is being used is not in full voice. It will be, you know, I mean, the idea here is that when a person projects, so I'm a singer. I did that sounds like I'm showing off. I did grade 8 singing, so you know, I know how to project from my diaphragm. When I'm projecting from down here and producing voice, so then I know that there's a lot of aerosol coming out as well. So if there's a number of interesting, I think, videos on YouTube where they put petri dishes in front of a person speaking and in front of a person, and they notice the difference in microbes or bacteria or any microorganism. I'm not sure what a virus is. A virus is a debate whether it's alive or not. But the point is that they measure the amount of aerosols that come out, and it's unbelievable the added amount of material that is projected when a person,
and the distance as well.
Yeah, and the distance as well when a person's projecting their voice. So it's a loss. It's a massive loss. There's going to be some music. It will be somewhat muted music. I think that's probably a good expression.
Closed lip humming.
Closed lip humming. I think muted music is probably a good sort of way of thinking about what the service is going to feel like.
Or we could do it inside I'm singing.
Inside I'm singing, that's right. Outside I'm humming. But yeah, good question.
Rabbi, from the practical point of view, how is a shul going to manage? People have to go up and down the stairs. How can you distance them when they go down onto the ground floor? Many people would need to go to the cloakroom or pick up their coats.
Yes,
go outside and possibly see people they haven't seen for a very long time. How are you going to control that?
That's a great question. And part of this, I just want to, this is probably a good moment to shout out to the amazing honorary officers, council and volunteers in Barnet Shul who have been working very hard behind the scenes to try and logistically consider all those different questions and create a plan which as I said, is in the process of being communicated in writing to the Shul. Essentially, we're going to have a one-way movement system of movement of traffic through the shul from the entrance. So you come in through the main entrance. We go up into the main sanctuary. The Beit Midrash is out of bounds. Also, the cloakroom is out of bounds because it's just too close. It's too small to manage social distancing and appropriate space between people. We'll go upstairs, and then rather than coming back out that way, everyone, if anyone wants to, well, the way that we'll leave is that ladies will have an exit through the kitchen and gentlemen will have an exit out through the fire escape, and then they will go around the back of the shul and out. And so there's this one-way system of traffic in through the main entrance and then out through the back. If a person wants to re-enter the shul, for example, they want to use the bathroom, so then they would have to exit the shul at the back and go around and then enter again in order to maintain a one-way flow of traffic. So that's the way that we can manage social distancing in terms of footfall through the building. And also in terms of making sure that people can safely use the facilities so then the only one bathroom is going to be available, the disabled toilet will be available, and there will be wipes in there for a person to wipe down the seat after they've used it. That's right, just to keep everything clean in between each use. So consider using the facilities before coming to shul.
It's a long journey.
Yeah. In terms of managing how people talk to each other, so then look, there is we have to trust you also. We have to trust you that you can manage your own risk and that you can be safe. But we're putting on a show for our neighbors, for our friends. Everyone's going to be keenly watching. Yeah, everyone's going to be keenly watching. I'll take a minute. Keenly watching what we're doing, our neighbors on Eversley Road and the surrounding area. And so we have to make sure that we sanctify God's name, that we show that Jews know how to take this seriously, as well as love each other. We have to be mindful of the impact that we are making and the messages we're communicating to others by our actions. So that's how I'd answer that. Yeah, that's the answer to that one.
Rabbi, for those people who are sheltering at the moment and can't get to go to shul and stuff, and going back to Rena's point about music, is there perhaps a way that we could have some sort of spiritual music uplift, obviously not on Shabbat, but maybe at other times, just to make us feel part of the kahila? Maybe rather than just having a shir, but actually having some sort of musical chazanot or something like that, which we could have on YouTube or something like that to raise our spirits, and that we could join in with some explanations of how we could do that from our Sidorim.
Sure, I think that's a great suggestion. And first of all, I think that probably the most difficult part about lockdown is those who are shielding those who are alone. It's the isolation must be deafening in its silence. And I've been speaking to so many people who've found this to be traumatizing, to be a real assault on their well-being. And we're here for you. And please, just if there's anything that we can do, sometimes it's difficult to proactively reach out to everybody personally, but we are always so glad to hear when people contact us and just for a chat, or a request for a garden visit, whatever it is, we're around. In terms of offering material online, so everything that we can beam out from the shul in terms of prayer services will be beamed out, and that will include weekday services for anyone who wants to say along with the community, say Kaddish along with the community from home. That's something that we'll be doing. But also, for the past few months, we've been having this wonderful Kabbalat Shabbat service at 7 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, where we sing through Kabbalat Shabbat. I find it very joyous to sing through with the community. It's not just been me leading the services, but there's been other members who have been singing too. And I would recommend that anyone who wants to enjoy welcoming Shabbat with song can come along. I spoke to a lovely friend of mine. He's here. I hope he doesn't mind mentioning. I spoke to Glenn yesterday, and he said, well, sometimes we should do a Kalibach one, and sometimes we should do a more traditional one, a more traditional Lechadodi without the 9 eyes. And I think that's great. I think we should sometimes do a more traditional one, sometimes do a more sing-song Kalibach one, and to offer something for all. But do log in at 7 p.m. on a Friday night. From next week, not this week, because this week will still be entirely on Zoom. Next week will be a hybrid Kabbalat Shabbat. It will be zooming out from shul until Shabbat comes in, what we are singing or mutely singing in shul. So do enjoy that. And if there are other musical opportunities that we can have to bring a bit of simcha, a bit of rina to people's lives, so that we'll look into that. And maybe I have a friend who might be able to help out.
But how's it going to work as regards blowing the shover over the Yom Tovim?
Okay. So
we're not allowed to go over 70, so how are we going to hear it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Excuse me, I'll go round. I'll see you.
I'll blow it for you.
I should come with my ram's horn.
Okay,
Thank
thank you, Glenn. Thank you.
The only trouble is, to be honest with you, the neighbours won't like the noise.
Yeah, outside the
But I
flat.
shall be more than happy to blow my horn for you. I should take some further lessons.
That's a better answer than either of us could possibly give. Thank you very much. Just to answer that, this year there's only one day of shofar blowing, which is the second day. The first day is Shabbat in any case, so we won't be blowing shofar on Shabbat. And so on the second day, we're already looking into how to make as many accessible shofar blowings as possible. But if that means, Sheila, if that means standing on the lawn outside your flat and coming to blow shofar for you and doing that 10, 20, 30 times around Barnet, that's fine as well. So we're looking into that. And at the moment, because the situation is so dynamic, so we don't really know what will be with the Yom Noraim. We have multiple plans that we're juggling or knocking around at the moment in terms of what could be, but it's very difficult to make any sort of concrete plans at the moment, just since we just don't know what it's going to be in September.
Thank you.
Rabbi, have you had any thought about how you're going to make or help the older members of the community who apparently are not going to be able to come to shul over the Yom Tovim, so they don't feel so isolated? Have you thought about anything, how we can overcome that or help people such as me?
And me.
Yeah.
And me.
And me from a Sarah now.
I hear your voices loud and clear. Probably the most heartbreaking conversation I had so far was someone today begging me to come to shul because they want to say Kaddish and they're over 70. And the previous guidance that we received was to not invite members who are over 70 anyone who is shielding from coming to shul. And I think I had a little cry on the phone with this person because it just felt so painful. We've received updated guidance, which is that whilst anyone who is older will have a greater risk of contracting or being more harmfully affected by this disease. So we also respect that people are adults and can make their own decisions about how they want to take risks in their own lives. And so that we're not making it as an absolute restriction on over 70s from coming to shul. It's if a person chooses to take that risk, then they can come. They can come and they're welcome to come, but that is the risk that they choose to take as a responsible adult. For anyone who feels it is too risky to come, so then Rosemary's question is very poignant, and we are looking into a number of options. One option is even having a special service just for older people who are shielding, so bringing people who are shielding together, so that in any case they are more guarded around each other. But watch this space. We haven't forgotten about you. You are very much on our hearts and minds. You're not the voice that is being left out. You are very much the voice that is being.
Shielding is coming to an end.
Sorry, could you repeat now
The end of August.
So, sorry, we've got some funny sound there. Do you mind repeating that?
Sorry, it gets freezing. What? Shielding is being paused, I think at the end of August. I had a letter.
Okay.
Yeah, the 1st of August.
So, 1st of August or the end of August? I can't remember.
1st of August.
Right, 1st of August. It's being paused, whatever that means. So the instructions are that people who have been shielding should still be careful, but they're not under the same restrictions as they were before.
Okay. So as I say, watch this space. Someone's asked from one end of from one context to another. They said, "Can you do jigsaw puzzles on Shabbat? And does it make a difference if it's a monochrome, unpatterned jigsaw puzzle or one with a special design?" Which is a very important question. Lockdown jigsaw puzzles.
What is anyone doing during lockdown?
Other than jigsaw puzzles.
Listening to Westlife.
And I've been playing in the garden and going to school.
Yes, we've been playing in the garden and going to school.
And doing homework.
And doing no, you haven't.
Fair enough.
We're trying with homework.
But we do sometimes.
We do sometimes.
We do
it's
once
true.
or twice. You're right. So I suppose the question is halachically whether that is writing.
Yeah, or creating an image.
Right, which on Shabbat we don't write. So would it be considered writing if you're piecing together puzzles to draw or write? So seeing as you've just finished your smicha syllabus.
Almost. Only 3 more weeks, and the next this smicha syllabus will be complete. So thank you everyone for your forbearance in allowing me to do this. So it's a good question. First of all, if if this is one of those amazing massive puzzles that really you only do once and then you leave it
And frame it.
and then you frame it and you leave it as your 1,000 piece or whatever it is. I know I don't think Russell minds me asking. Russell, how big are these puzzles that you guys do?
He asked that.
Minimum 1,000 piece.
Minimum 1,000
Right.
pieces. There you go. So
If the idea is some kind of permanent.
if there's a certain permanence to it, then it's essentially creating a permanent image. And so that's like creating writing or drawing. So then that creates a problem. So there are ways around it. I would have to go and look up the exact way to go and look around it, but there you go. So clearly a little bit more work to do on my syllabus. If there isn't an image though, that's a really good question. It's just a monochrome. It's just a monochrome. So then that might be an easier one, but also certainly for kids, if it's the sort of puzzle that you just put together and take apart, so then it's understood it's an entirely temporary exercise, and so that would be fine. But I'll come back to you, Russell, with or others who with the Eiffel Tower or whatever other image it is, Picasso, to let you know whether what that's like on Shabbat for a permanent puzzle.
Surely, Rabbi, it's only an image if it's a face or a person.
Well, I mean, a landscape's also an image. Any sort of I'm just looking at the question. Any sort of picture is also an image. It's a substantive thing. Anyone? Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah.
How will you determine who can come in onto services from the community, given that obviously not everybody will be able to be accommodated? And will you be prioritising men versus women to attend, but given the requirements for men to be part of a minyan, etc.?
What was it? I didn't hear the first part of the
It's
question.
about prioritizing. So that's a good question. Again, some of this will be written up, but come out tomorrow. We at Barnet are taking a really strong stand on the principles that are guiding how we are managing opening up the shul. And so those are AIR principles: A, accessibility; I, inclusivity; R, respect. And that means that we are prioritizing inclusivity over, for example, the length of minyanim that we might be having. So to put that into context, some shuls are asking for people to register whether they have a yort site, whether they have something that they're marking, whether they're saying Kaddish, and trying to create some sort of hierarchical system of prioritization. I've already seen a number of shuls who, even very kind of egalitarian modern Orthodox shuls, putting out statements about how they're finding it difficult because they're having to choose men over women because men can halakhically create a minyan and a woman cannot halakhically create a minyan. We don't want to get involved in that sort of decision making or hierarchy. I think it's divisive and I think it's unfair.
But also quite blessed that we have more space than some shuls.
Yeah, we do have so we can accommodate approximately 30 people in the main sanctuary. And so the intention is to put on multiple services and not turn anybody away. So if there were 60 people who wanted to come, well, we wouldn't have one service and turn 30 away. We'd rather have 2 services of 30. If there were 40 people that wanted to come, I'd rather not have one, rather than having one service of 30 and turning 10 people away, I'd rather have 2 services of 20. If there were 31 people that wanted to come, I'd rather split the minyan into 2 small minyanim and have one service of 15 people and one service of 16 people. But I don't want to turn a single person away from shul because I don't think that's not Barnet. That's not what we stand for. We stand for being open and not and accessible. That's what we stand for. So that is why we're going to have a sign-up system for Shabbat morning. And on Shabbat morning, we will be running, at the moment, the plan is to run as many services as we need, but what that probably will look like is 2 formal services, which will be somewhat abridged to enable us to bring people into the building safely, for them to leave, and then for the shul to be cleaned by cleaning staff in between services, and then to make it ready and safe for the next service. So that would mean starting at 8 o'clock for the first minyan or the first service. That will last. We will start at Nishmat or Shochen Ad towards sort of at the end of Pesukei Zimra. So that will shorten the service by about half an hour, and we'll be a little bit more expeditious in our journey through the service. That service, the 8 o'clock service, will finish at about 9:20. That will leave 40 minutes to clean the shul till 10 o'clock. Then we'll have a 10 o'clock service, another formal service starting at Nishmat with the full service with laning, etc. And then that will finish at approximately 11:20. 11:20, the shul will be cleaned one more time, and then at 12 till 1, then we're going to have a discovery exploratory program, which is going to be for those people that want to come to shul, but already know in themselves that for whatever reason, this is not going to be the shul experience that they want, but they want to connect and they want to come to shul and they want to learn something and they want to pray something, but they know that actually under lockdown or maybe under any conditions, a Shabbat morning service doesn't necessarily float their boat. So then we want to offer something a bit different, a bit engaging, maybe with readings, with poetry, with discussion as much as we can across the shul for an hour from 12 to 1. The shul will then be cleaned again, and then we'll be ready for business in the afternoon for Shabbat Mincha. We don't envisage there being any pinch points other than Shabbat morning. So we're not going to be booking people in to different slots except for Shabbat morning. And then we'll review the system before the High Holy Days so that we are ready for that next pinch point, essentially.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
The Sidarim and the Sifrei Torah, will we be wearing gloves?
Yes.
If you're touching...
I think even though we have instituted in Barnet or a new practice of bringing the Sefer Torah around so that everyone can touch and kiss the Sefer Torah, it doesn't take anyone to have a degree in public health or medicine to know that in a time of contagious disease, that's not going to be the most helpful way of maintaining everyone maintaining everyone's safety. So actually, there's only going to be one person who touches the Sefer Torah. When they do so, they'll be wearing gloves. We won't have everyone else will not have to wear gloves at all times. But if they're touching the Sefer Torah, the person who is touching the Sefer Torah will have to wear gloves, and they will be the only person doing it. So they will bring it out, they'll put it onto the bimah, they will do the hugba, they will do the galila. How do you do hugba and galila at the same time? So that's a great question. You actually have to sprout another 2 arms from your chest. Now the answer is that you do hugba, you put it down on the table, and then you just roll it up. So then we'll be able to touch and kiss the Sefer Torah. We'll have to see what happens at Simchas Torah. I think for me that's going to be the more confusing one.
Also the Sidorim and the Machzorim.
Anyone who lives within the Erev is always welcome to bring their own. But yeah, it's a good point about
the Sidurim.
About the Sidurim.
So we are requesting that if people can bring their own Siddur or Machzor, then they should. But otherwise, we will have Sidurim or Machzorim available. What happens to your book after it's been used is it goes into quarantine for 48 hours so that any surface contagion, if there was any, will die, and then it gets made re-available to the shul in 48 hours time for those that want to use it. So that is the solution we are finding there, but we won't be able to. I don't think we'll be able to offer talitot couples. Pardon?
Wear gloves.
The shul will have all PPE equipment available at the shul. But
yeah, but if you can bring your own, then that would be
great.
That would be great.
Yeah.
In terms of, you don't need to wear gloves for the Sidurim, because according to the current evidence, there's corona cannot live for longer than 48 hours on an inanimate surface. So,
but you're going to have one service after another.
So those books from the first service go into quarantine before the second service. We bring out the next set of books for the second service. Those books that group of books go into quarantine after the second service. Thank God, we've got enough books in the shul, I think, to manage. So that's But if anyone wants to donate further books to the shul, I'm sure we have our FR and chair logged in this evening, and he will be more than happy to receive your donation.
What about masks?
Masks. So if you can bring your own, then please do. If you live outside the Eruv and you haven't brought a mask to shul beforehand, then there would be a question whether you can wear it to shul, because often people don't leave the mask on their face at all times, and so there are issues from outside the Eruv. Therefore, if you have not yet been able to bring it to shul before shul and can't bring it within the Eruv, so then there will be masks available for members to use in shul. Yeah, as well as gloves.
Rabbi, can I ask another question? Can you visualize the United Synagogue allowing, like the Reform and Liberal synagogues, to do services online, which would certainly help people who, as I say, are I can't think of the word, stuck inside and can't go to shul?
Great. Good question. Good question. And I just also want to add at this point that tonight doesn't only have to be about Corona, it can be about anything. So I've got a few other questions that people have emailed to me about other non-Corona based things that you can ask us about how we're managing if you want, or anything else, anything you want to ask. This is really an open forum.
Well, that was a question. It doesn't have to be with you. It doesn't have to be with coronavirus. A lot of people who are shut at home on a Shabbos can't come to shul because of their illnesses, but would like to participate.
That's right. So back to Rosemary's question, which is a great question, an important question, and it's not just a question about this particular situation. It's a broader question about how we as an Orthodox movement relate to the standards and structure that Orthodoxy presents to us, which is more kind of containing and maybe rigid, for want of a better word, than our non-Orthodox friends. So
it's revisiting the question of the Siddur.
It's revisiting the question, right? So it's the same question that I think was asked around Seder night, which is that people were very painfully isolated right at the beginning of lockdown. Members who wanted only to be with their kids, their grandkids, their great-grandkids, and instead were finding themselves, maybe for the first time in decades, alone or with a very small contingent for Seder night. And wouldn't it have been easier for them just to have Zoom open or a phone on in order to be able to be in contact with their loved ones during that time? And in actual fact, Rabbi Schechter from Yeshiva University, so he heads up the rabbinical school at Yeshiva University, so he produced a responsa at the time of Seder night, where he said that if a person is going to be substantively distressed, psychologically distressed by being isolated and alone, then there would be ways for them to be connected to others. Say, for example, a phone that is left on from before Shabbat, placed on a table, such that they can listen into the Seder and contribute to the Seder of their family without touching the phone. But that was stressed to be only in an extremist situation when the person is really worried about their well-being in such a way that they're concerned for some sort of psychosis, a really low mood that is that can't be lifted. So that would be a time that we would, for sure, that we would have greater leniencies around the use of technology on Shabbat or on Yom Tov. Ultimately, I think we have to say, what is Shabbat? What is Yom Tov? And is Shabbat or Yom Tov just about a good feeling? Just about being with family and community?
Certainly it's a part of it.
And certainly that is a part of it. But it's also a special day, a day that is a day of holiness, a day of sanctity. And we understand that days of holiness, days of sanctity have a certain construct around them to protect their sanctity, to make sure that they are that special day. And so to lower our standards for the day, to lower our standards in the name of the day would actually be undermining the day on another level. And so that is our answer as a system of Judaism that believes in this being divine, this being the revealed word of God, this not only being a beautiful celebration of our humanity, but also a connection to God, and that God has helped us to connect to these holy days by abstaining from particular creative labor. So yes, I'm with you. I understand the difficulty. Yes, if there is someone for whom lockdown is becoming overwhelming, then there would be a way for them to, that is right for them then to choose other options, and we can talk about what those options could be personally on a case-by-case basis. And I know of very significant rabbis in America as well who've said, I'm leaving my phone on Shabbat, I'm leaving my phone on. You have a special, they have a special number. If you think that you might be at risk of a breakdown or of a mental health crisis that you need me for, then call me and I will pick up my phone on Shabbat. So I know that has been happening in a number of very prominent shuls in America. But the base of
a bit of blanket rules for people, that there hasn't been any mainstream Orthodox rabbi who has given a blanket permission for people to use technology or things like Zoom to Zoom in or Skype into services.
Yeah, and I suppose, you know, a part of me wants to say this, and I think I feel like I should say it, which is they kept Pesach in Auschwitz. They had a Seder in the Warsaw Ghetto. They have, throughout history, Jews have held on to what it means to be Jewish. Jews have held on to halacha throughout persecution, pogrom, all the things that have been thrown at us. So I don't, and personally, Corona isn't going to break us to lose our standards. It's difficult, yes. It's painful, yes. But do we have to lose what we stand for? I don't think so. I think then we're beat. So,
but is what you're saying, Rabbanim are saying, because of Chai Nefesh? Is that they're concerned that somebody might then do something to physically harm themselves as a consequence? Is that the basis of it?
Yes. In a word, yes. Someone asks if face masks will be compulsory in shul. Yes, they will be. What does the prayer leader do when he is trying to sing? It's a great question. Unclear. Fine. I have a couple of questions on my emails. I'm just going to go and get those. But anyone else?
Question.
Go on. He's told me to dance while he goes to find his emails.
You might actually give the answer. Back in the day, yeah, when you first came to the shul, and it was that Sunday, and the rabbi was, and you were answering all different things. The rabbi said he supported a football team, but he was too embarrassed to say who it was. Who is it?
I think it's a really good question. If he has, I doubt the rabbi has ever watched a football game in his entire life. I think he's mixing up rabbis. He doesn't follow any sport at all.
Because somebody asked him on that Sunday, and he said he was embarrassed to admit what it was. So I presume that meant he was a Spurs fan.
No, what he probably meant is he's embarrassed to say that he doesn't even know what football means.
Okay.
I think it's all the rage for people to let you know who they support, because it becomes a sort of, you know, a status thing. Unfortunately, we have zero sports in our house.
Did you mean there's a sport that doesn't involve two wheels and moving your legs really fast in circles over and over again? Is there?
What? Baseball, being an Arsenal fan, yeah.
So I've got a question here, a lovely question. It says, going forward, do you believe the contents of our services should be revised and wherever possible shortened? Did you want to start with that?
Going forward, contents should be revised and wherever possible.
I'll start with that one, you start with that one.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so I think that's a great question, and maybe I will expand the question a little bit in a different way, which is,
Sorry, is this, can I just clarify, is this COVID related?
No,
or
this is just a general
across-
question.
Okay.
I think this is a general question.
Generally, should services be shortened? Okay,
Yes.
fine.
So the maybe we could say the question like this. When I was growing up, we had to go to Bournemouth United Synagogue with Rabbi Clancy, and I remember going there and just feeling like it took forever and ever and ever. It started at 9:30, it went on beyond midday. There was a Kiddush afterwards, but actually it was such a squish in the other hall that it wasn't necessarily the most enjoyable. And that was the time when kids were not welcome at the Kiddush. They were sort of pushed off to one side. It just took forever. And I remember speaking to friends who, certainly in City of London, or other people who went to churches or other prayer services, and they were aghast at how long the whole morning can go past, right? That it's not until sort of 1 o'clock that you're rocking up at home, and the whole half the day is gone in shul. And not only that, but what are we doing in shul? Because there is a huge amount of text when it comes to a prayer service, a huge amount of words, and they are beautiful words. They're unbelievable. But for many of us, they're in a language that is inaccessible. For many of us, it's very difficult to even read that language, to read Hebrew. And so what are we doing in shul with this very long service? And then don't forget, of course, that there are people who enjoy long services with chazanut. It would take even longer. There could be that a Rosh Hashanah service takes 7 hours, and that's a considerable amount of time to listen to someone singing away. Now, they might have a beautiful voice, but it's a long time, and it's a long time listening to words that I find it difficult to connect to. So I hear. There was 2 answers to this. One, the short answer was, you have somewhere better to be. That was the short answer. The long answer is, that it says in Shulchan Aruch, in the first section called Orach Chaim, chapter 1, and it's only the 4th law in there. It says it's better to spend more time saying less things. Sorry, it's better to say less things with more intent, more focus, more kavanah, than saying more things with less focus and less understanding. So this doesn't necessarily mean reducing the time it takes to pray, but it does mean readdressing our priorities in prayer. What is the point of prayer? Is it to say these words, or is it to pour my heart out to God? I think we all know the answer to that question. It's just we've never dared to challenge the status quo and say, why are we saying so many words? We're meant to be praying, for goodness sake. We're meant to be speaking, connecting, crying, laughing, talking to God. That's what prayer is about. Yes, it's in song at times. Sometimes it's in a whisper. It can be poetic, it can be dramatic, but prayer is meant to be an experience that transfixes our emotions, connects us, and that we want to enjoy, that we want to engage in. So my kind of the answer to this question would be, I don't mind the length of the prayer service. What I do mind is the lack of connection in the prayer service. I'd love to build with the shul more ways to understand the prayers, to take significant sections, to take them slowly and really engage with them. And then as a community, learn more and more what it is to pray and not just say words. There's another question. I think this might be more directed to my fantastic wife. You want to take this one now?
Okay. My question is, would it not be good if more ladies became members in their own right, and that a structured ladies guild could be established, as in ancient years, so that the ladies in our community could once again be truly involved in the association of US women? A couple of questions there, but I think that the theme is, should women not be more welcomed as an integral part of the shul experience? And I think the answer is definitely yes. And the reason for that is historically women didn't have so much of a place within formal shul experiences, within a formal community experience, and that was because the shul was the focus of organized prayer, which is specifically for men, a minyan. Men have to pray in a minyan, whereby for a woman, prayer can look very different, although she can always opt to pray with a minyan. As society has evolved, as you know, nowadays it's normal for women to assume that coming to shul is part of their religious practice. No, it's okay. And that's how we connect to shul, how we connect to God, and often how we connect to that idea of community. And as we've evolved for that to become the normal status quo, then yes, there need to be more access points for women to feel that they're valued as members within the shul building and within the community. So yes, definitely, 100%.
And it's almost funny how as United Synagogue boards and honorary offices were opened up to women, that left a space where it almost downplayed the importance of a ladies' guild. Similarly, I think on the other side, from a male perspective, as female education became more and more important, male education got sacrificed because it's understood, well, they go to shul anyway, but they're not learning anything in the shul, they're just davening. Not just davening, but they're davening. So I think both balances need to be addressed, that we need to have the places that women can lead, can learn, and also men can learn.
Yeah, but I think it's opened some really beautiful conversations. Men who are not simply happy going through the route of coming to shul, coming to a minyan, through the words, and now being forced to recognize that, hey, I'd also like all of those extracurricular educational activities as well, that are being offered to women. I know when we open up certain women's fora in our shul, so things like we've got Natalie Shaw here, who's relaunched Shine, and we have the ladies' tea and tefillah. We have various things, and there are often men who say, well, why can't we also have that kind of a sacred space experience, or why aren't we welcome to attend those? And what sometimes is lost is that women, it's more difficult for women to have those kind of experiences in a religious setting, because we don't have the mitzvah of davening in a minyan. We don't have very many mitzvot that force us to come together and in a group and have a sort of group religious experience. So that's a very valuable experience for many women. The same but that opens the conversation that these kind of spaces are also very beneficial to men. And hopefully we're trying to launch some of those spaces, and we've already started to launch some of those spaces as well.
I think Shoshana, the question about having a ladies' guild, from being a sort of professional woman myself, I somehow sort of see that as being a bit retrograde. The concept is that the woman is in the kitchen and that, you know, that her place is in the kitchen and not in the service. As somebody who perhaps, you know, has been through university, who's got a master's degree and stuff, who professionally operates equally to a man during the day, I find that sort of concept in this day a bit, to be honest, a bit patronizing. It may not be intended to be, but it can come across that way. And I like the idea of a tea and tefillah, and I have to say, I think the podcasts are excellent, because I can't join in during the day because it's when I'm working. And that sort of gets me thinking that there is a place for people who perhaps, you know, want to engage, but are actually working as well and can't always do the things during the day or even after in the evening, but perhaps maybe a Sunday morning or something like that might be an opportunity for those sorts of things to happen, where you can actually get people involved. Because to be honest, if I've been on Zoom calls all day for work, the last thing I necessarily want to do is to be on a Zoom call in the evening as well. But I do want to participate in the shul, and I want to be an active member of the shul.
Yeah, definitely.
May I come back on the question? It's Vivian.
Sure.
I asked the question, I know, as I said, as in ancient times, because myself and many of the older members of the shul, we were all ladies' guild. We were ladies' guild, we were parents' association, we were for mitzvah breakfasts, we did everything. The ladies' guild is not about kitchen.
Quite
The
right.
Ladies Guild is about bringing people together,
Mhm.
getting newer, younger members, people with children coming up to bar mitzvah and bar chayil, involved in what went on in the shul, involved in the fact that if we were going to make a kiddush for them, they would help on the Shabbos and make a kiddush for others. We had social events, we had speakers, we worked, we had families, we had parents. We went on doing for 20 years or so while our families grew up, while we looked after parents. And it was the Association of Ladies of Jewish Women which grew out of the Association of Ladies Guilds, the quizzes, the gets-togethers, the meetings with other people from other shuls, annual events where we had marvelous times. People, we brought the younger women into the shul where their children were growing up.
Yeah.
We got them
I'm
to
a child of you lot.
Yeah.
Anna, you wanted to say something? Unmute yourself.
Yes, I was trying. Yes, Natalie's response was exactly why we don't have a ladies' guild. However, and we do participate, Vivian, in all of those things.
But there's a few of you who are doing all the work. It's not passed on and it's not taught to the next generation.
I disagree. I had a lot of the next generation involved in Shabbat UK. There's a lot of the next generation involved in Hesed. The issue is that the title Ladies Guild is just not appealing.
Rename it. Rename it.
And I'm very happy to support anyone that would like to start that would like to start that kind of thing, but no one wants to be on a committee. Everyone's happy to take part in a rota, to do what needs doing. Everyone's more than happy to do that, but no one wants to be part of a committee anymore.
But the whole point with the committees, it passed on generationally. You got involved. You then stayed giving advice, but you didn't have to do everything. The same people at the moment for years have been doing the same things without any new blood that have come to these other.
There's a lot of new bloods.
I think that's a historical thing. I think if you look at the board, just trying to recruit younger members onto the board has proved really, really difficult, or HOs or wardens or chairmen or FRs or any of the formal positions in the shul.
Look at the age range this evening.
I think the majority.
I'm the youngest.
I think we've had an amazing response in terms of the Hesed effort over COVID, in terms of younger members, all members of the aged members of the shul actively helping out and playing their part. It's just the young generation do not want to be on committees. They do not want to commit. But if you ask them to do something, they're very, very willing to do so.
Well, I think this conversation leads on to a question that was emailed in, which is, what is your recipe for bringing more people into the synagogue?
Knocking on doors.
Pardon?
When I was on the membership, sorry, I'm not talking about the party. When I was on the membership committee, I used to look as I went around the streets. If there were mezuzahs on doors, I would knock on the door. I would say, I am a member of Barnet Shul. Are you thinking of joining us? Would you like to come along and meet us? Be friendly face. You've got to do it, unfortunately.
Right,
this is
Vivian,
we're going to recruit you back.
We're going to ask you, Yiska, what do we do on Shabbat afternoon sometimes?
knock on doors.
What do we do?
I've seen it. Yes.
We walk around the streets and we look for a mezuzah. And what do we do if we see a mezuzah? Knock on the door. So, so we have been doing that in Barnet too.
Rabbi, I have I must tell you, a problem we've had with our mezuzah on our aluminium door. And when it gets very hot, it falls off.
Oh.
Can you give me a solution, please? It's on double-sided tape.
Screw it in, mate. Screw it in.
I'm forever going out, putting it back again.
Gorilla glue.
But it's a good question. What are we going to do to attract more members? Maybe I can speak out the challenge, or before we speak about some of the possibilities forward. Go Good night, Iska. We're just saying good night.
Say good night to everyone. Say good night.
No, Iska.
Happy
Iska,
day.
sorry, Iska.
Oh, okay. So let me speak out the challenge. And this is not a challenge that is new, but I think we should just speak it out. The United Synagogue is hemorrhaging members. So we don't often talk about it in such strident tones, but at least a number of years ago, there was a demographic or a statistical exercise the United Synagogue undertook, and they realized they were losing the equivalent of a shul a year. So approximately, that was the number of membership. The membership was falling away from the movement, and there are lots of different explanations that people have given for that. Shift to the right, shift to the left, being too centrist, not being centrist enough, being too traditional, being too modern. I think you could label a huge amount of different possible explanations as to why that is the case. But the situation is very tricky. Is that as an organization, the organization is not succeeding in communicating to the current generation, say people Shoshana my age, it's not succeeding communicating to us why it's important to be part of a shul, and so, or at least why it's important to be part of the United Synagogue. And so the organization has been trying to do a number of different things to manage that, because otherwise there is an existential threat to this wonderful organization that is celebrating this month its 150th anniversary. And happy birthday to United Synagogue for the 14th of July. One of the things the United Synagogue did was to create Tribe, which is the youth wing of the United Synagogue. And they poured an incredible amount of resource into Tribe. And I think the jury is still out whether Tribe has been a success or not. So again, I'm speaking very openly. Possibly I should take this down from YouTube afterwards, but there we go. What do I think? I think, I think that Judaism needs to speak to a person's life as they are today. Judaism needs to exist not simply in the besuited and behatted moments of shul on Shabbat, but Judaism needs to spark life and light in everything that we do, and therefore we need to communicate why this is the best thing that we can be doing. This is the best package that we have, in a way that will add value to my life when I'm off in Canary Wharf, when I am studying for my degree, when I'm out on the town for a night. Judaism needs to speak to all those moments, and we need to engage with it in different ways so that it can speak to all those moments. That might sound like quite lofty, but as a personal example, I'm a young father. I'm struggling with Corona, because all the structures for helping manage and helping look after kids are not there or weren't there. What does Judaism say for a young father struggling with that? Is there some way that we can communicate to people my age who are kind of all finding this situation tricky? Is there some way that we can communicate what it is that Judaism can offer to help skillfully and wisely manage this situation? And I think there is a lot. I think there's a lot there. Just as a very kind of as a brief thought, God's put us here for a reason. God's right here, right now, in your kitchen and in my kitchen, cheering me on, saying, this is your chance to shine as a father. You thought that being a father was just coasting. You're a fool. That's not what being a father means. Being a father means being present in times of crisis to help manage and to help contain your children's distress, to help contain your partner's distress. That's what it means. God's right here, right now, cheering you on. And that's a message of the Baal Shem Tov. That's a message of the founder of the Hasidic movement. If we can, that for me is very inspiring. If we can continue to produce or deliver Judaism in a way that feels very, very modern, but is very connected to what we are. I'm not talking about modern orthodoxy here. I'm talking about communication, communicating this amazing message in the most up-to-date way. Language using constructs which people can connect to. So I think that will hopefully mean that we will draw people in, because Judaism is the best excuse for Judaism. We have the best package. I don't think we need to change the package, water it down in any. I think On the contrary, we need to be offering the real heart and soul, but just in a way that can provide multiple access points to get into this content, because the content is amazing. It's unbelievable. And so I think that is an answer to what we can do to bring people in and manage this difficulty. Shoshana, did you have any other thoughts about?
I didn't hear all of your serenade, but
That's
okay, we both do. But I remember when we came for our interview and in front of a panel of however many it was, what was it, like 16 or so, they asked a similar question. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that part of our response was, if you create a vision, if you create a project, a vision, a dream, people buy into that. If all you offer are services, how appealing is that? How many people want to just come for services? But if you're on a path to something big, then people will buy in.
Yeah.
Vision, create a vision.
And create a movement around it, that we all as a community stand for something. We're all going somewhere together. We support each other. We believe in something together. Right. That's what really, I think.
Not just an individual buying into a burial plot.
Right. We're not just a service provider. We're not just here for a place in Bushey or Waltham Abbey. We're here to live Jewish, not just die Jewish. But we're here to stand for something very powerful. We are a movement that believes in certain things, that Judaism can speak to me right now, that we can care for each other, that we can engage with each other as a community across the age spectrum, across the demographic, across different socioeconomic statuses. But with something that binds us together is that we're all Barnet Jews, and that we are all part of this amazing, vibrant community. If we can start to create that sort of momentum and movement, then I think that will shine out what it means to be a dynamic community living in modern times.
And that doesn't just require Rabbi and Rebbitzin at the helm. That actually, the USP is the community. Our unique selling point is the community itself. So that's every single person within the community who adds invaluable stuff to that community itself. So every single person who's here today and everyone else needs to kind of step up as well.
We're coming towards the end of the session, but if one or two more questions before we finish.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Why was it that the more orthodox elements of the community seem to be most resistant to government guidance and seemingly placing the value of minyan over pikuach nefesh? And even in the opening, you see the more orthodox shores are having less stringent approaches to coming back than we are.
Yeah. So
is there a misalignment of values in parts of the community there?
In short, yes, if that was the case. We saw that there was some really bad press with there were a couple of weddings, lockdown weddings, I think it was, that made national papers, and that was the epitome of a Chilul Hashem, desecrating God's name in public, and that was unfortunately horrific. Whether we paint all ultra-Orthodox or religious Jews with the same brush, I would argue no, we don't. That yes, there is a misalignment. There's no talking around it. That's totally wrong, and unfortunately also gives all of us a bad rap as well.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? So,
Werner. Yes. How have your first 3 months been?
I was about to say, like, we've got only a few minutes left, and no one's asked any awkward questions that I had to be scared of, but yeah, we've settled in great. I was saying to someone in the community earlier this week who said, does it feel like home yet? And I said, there's nothing quite like being locked in your house for 3 months to force you to feel at home. So yeah, it's a new home. Children are happy by and large. Are you happy?
Do you know a good therapist?
I do.
So, I think someone said a title for a book or for something could be Rabbi Without a Shul, which was the interesting predicament we found ourselves in, that we left Israel the day after Barnet closed its doors and the day after the chief rabbi made his announcement. But so it hasn't been tricky. On a personal level, there have been many blessings and many challenges. So let me just share one or two with you, and then I'll talk about the shul as well. I think the greatest blessing for me has been that every morning I now have a little routine that I never had before. And that is that there's a little boy upstairs who hasn't been interrupting tonight's session, who
He did one.
he had not tonight's session. Oh, he did.
Yes,
You had
he
to
did.
go. That's right. That's right. And
It's because he didn't have to go, so he just pretends it didn't happen.
Well, there's a little boy upstairs. His name is Ezra. He's 1.5, and his dad and he didn't actually get to spend much time with each other because in Israel everything was very, very, very busy, and left very early in the morning, came back quite late at night, and so there wasn't much of a relationship there. But every morning now I spend about 2 hours with him because his favorite game is to compete with his father for who can wake up earliest in the house. So whilst I wake up at 5, he's trying to wake up earlier, or at least at 5:15. So then we have a couple of hours till the girls wake up and join us. And so the blessing for lockdown for me is that I've built this beautiful relationship with my son. And I don't think that would have happened at all had we just been thrown into what isn't normal now, but would have been normal then. There have been other silver linings too, that Yiska, who has sort of struggled with the bouncing backwards and forwards between here and Israel, has now had her parents wrapped around her for the first couple of months of being in the UK. And so the transition has been somewhat buffered by virtue of the fact that we've all been together. Now, being all together in one house,
It's wonderful and beautiful and does not cause any marital discord.
That's right. That's right. So that's all that needs to be said about that. It's been amazing speaking to people from the shul. I think over the course of the past few months, I've spoken to probably about 200 people, maybe more.
Certainly more.
Certainly more over Zoom, now garden meetings, phone calls, learning programs, one-to-one learning, walking around Barnet, knocking on doors with mezuzahs, whatever it's been. This has been a really kind of flourishing time of connection on some level, as well as a time of distance. You see, on the one hand, the normal way to get to know people as a rabbi is, or as a rebbitzin, is you're in shul, you see people, you kind of, there's a check-in each week, you have people around for meals, you offer hospitality, and that is missing. And that is something that we really painfully miss, because a lot of the relationship building that we'd hoped to get to the ground running with has not happened. I can see Werner's face over here on my screen, which has got lots of viewing boxes, and we planned for a Shavuot, for a Pesach second night Seder for over 100 people. We planned for a Shavuot Tikkun Leil, yeah, a few. We planned for a Tikkun Leil, a massive Tikkun Leil with a Friday night dinner. We had so many plans to bring in the community together, and those aren't there. So there's a real sense of sort of missing out on meeting people, talking to people, davening with people. At the same time, this what's it called? Something is the source of invention. Necessity, that's right, is the mother of invention. Thank you. And I've seen us as a community move into different ways of working that maybe I could have possibly hoped for in 3 years' time under normal circumstances, and it's taken us 3 months to create a podcast, an online community, a way for people to connect who can't necessarily get to shul up the hill, down the hill, or who wouldn't necessarily, but are quite happy to just log in for an hour. It doesn't take that much effort anymore, right? You can just, or 10 minutes for tea and tefillah, you can just log in and log out, and you can get your dose of shul without all the other things that are wrapped around it. To have a team of hundreds of 70 volunteers calling hundreds of people to mobilize the care in the community in such a way, to have a podcast which is so diverse and so interesting and so fun. There's so much that actually has been happening that I think we can celebrate and hold our heads up and be proud of. So what's it been like for the first 3 months? Intense, exhausting,
absolutely exhausting,
but wonderful. And we only look forward to meeting more of you, seeing more of you. And please don't feel like you have to be a stranger. If there's something that's, please just reach out to us too. We're so delighted to have to have a call to say come around to my garden or come around to ours, to make a Zoom meeting. It really would be the most wonderful thing to see more of you, to talk to more of you. And please God, we'll only spend many more years together learning, growing and enjoying each other's company. Thank you so much for logging in tonight to our Q&A. My bracha, let's just finish with a little prayer. I pray that all those, just a prayer for all those who are unwell, who have known people who are unwell, who are lonely, who are bereaved, that we should have a consolation and a refuah shalema at this time. A prayer for all of us as a community, that we should come together, that we should continue to celebrate what is really important. What's really important is the love and the light that we share as a Jewish community. May that only continue to go from strength to strength, whether that's in Eversley Road, whether that's on a Zoom channel, whether that's in a garden. Let's continue just to build together. Amen.
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 And thank you for answering all these questions.
Absolute pleasure. We'll do it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Shoshana.
Thank you, both of you.
Everyone.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.